What's going on, everybody? Today I'm here with Leon Barth from BGM.studio. He's the founder and also a creator of StudioForm. Leon has been one of the most active community members at Wized. And yeah, welcome, Leon.
Thank you for the warm introduction. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm super happy to have you here. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, what was your developer journey like? How did you get started with all of that? And, where did you find Webflow?
Yeah, sure. I initially started as a dropshipper in 2019. So kind of was like fresh out of school. Started like an apprenticeship. I think that's a correct word for it. And,
you wanted that
really
Wi-Fi money.
Yeah, kind of. And I also really did not like that job. Like I kind of took like the first opportunity that came my way. And I don't know. That was back in 2019. That's when I first got introduced to like Shopify and building things on the web. But with like obviously the e-commerce and marketing background. But like the website itself, especially like in the Shopify space, was like the main thing I could influence, because I didn't really have influence over the product and not that much influence over the advertisement. So I really focused mainly on the website stuff, which was probably not the best idea if you want to do a successful e-commerce. But it was definitely great in learning all these base skills. And then I did that for a while. And at some point, so I did university next to that. And at some point, I got the chance university-wise to move to Berlin. And in Berlin, I put like the dropshipping part on ice. And quickly after that, got like a job as a marketing assistant. And then when I had that job, I don't know, 1 to 2 weeks into this, like the website of that company broke. The first hired like a WordPress agency that totally flopped. And then I volunteered to do it like, I think over the weekend or a bit longer, but that was really cool. And I've seen Webflow before, but that gave me the proper opportunity to get some real world experience, and turned it really well.
Nice. And what did you study at the university?
Economics.
Economics. Okay, so nothing related to development.
Absolutely nothing.
So you're 100% self-taught.
I've took some online courses, but not university taught.
Yeah. Perfect. I mean, that's what self-taught is. Like, you learn from the information that you find, somewhere around. So
yeah, you could say it like that. But I mean, I've had some great resources along the way. And there were definitely humans involved that helped me learn this along the way. Radek is probably a name everybody knows. That was a great resource. And then when I initially started out, my first programming, there was like on that Webflow project, and later down the line we had like a specific feature where we basically had like a list of events, of like course events, and once you pressed one of those, there was like a form below, but depending on which event you clicked, the form should be pre-filled with the event. And that's like a feature that you can't really do no code. It's too edge case. I've only built it once, so why should this be like a standard feature? And I've really hit some walls, but that was basically my starting point into programming. And I had like a colleague back from university that helped me with that, and it was an absolute like black magic moment for me to see somebody's actually capable of writing these, because there was like not a problem you could Google at the time. You didn't find anything to that. And the greatest favor I got in that remark is that colleague, I obviously came back with more requests, and the biggest favor I've ever gotten is that colleague stopped responding at some point. So I had to. I think without that, I probably wouldn't have had the motivation to do this, because you kind of, right, you kind of give a promise to your boss or to your client that you are capable of developing a feature, and then then you're like under the knife if you don't. So you kind of have to figure it out.
Yeah. But that's actually amazing that like, you decided to not give up and, you wanted to save face basically. So you decided to learn and do what it takes still, That's how you learn the most, when you actually bump into a problem that seems insurmountable, but then you pick up the resources that you need in order to, overcome it. And it might be super bad code that you write initially. Like if you look at it a year or two after, you might really cringe, but it works. And like, if you don't touch it, it won't break. So yeah, I think that's the best way to learn it. Like to take projects on that are just a little bit beyond what you know how to do.
Yeah, for sure. 100% agree. That's basically been my entire freelance career so far. That's like a little lies, but like kind of straight lies in the face of the client. Like, yeah, done that before. Then you're like in the project, it's like, oh crap.
Oh yeah, I didn't think about this edge case when I was planning it in my head, kind of. When you say like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do that, that's easy to do when you're thinking about it ahead of time. But then when you're in it, then you figure out, oh, actually, there's, more to it than meets the eye at the beginning.
Oh yeah, that happened so many times. I think one of the best trainings I had in terms of learning programming was when I started like with Webflow freelancing, and there was like not a lot of slider components around, and so I built like a bunch of custom sliders where I wrote every time I wrote the slider script from scratch. And you learn a lot when you try to make a slider that doesn't bug. Like sliders have an enormous amount of edge cases for their relative simple appearance.
And now, like after so much time, you can basically say that you're a technical developer. Like you write a lot of JavaScript nowadays, right?
Yeah. These days I'm fully spending my days fully either in Webflow, either in Wized, either in Xeno, or writing JavaScript. So, and there were times where I basically spent 95% of my week just writing JavaScript.
And what are some resources that you would recommend for people who are new to JavaScript who would like to learn it?
I mean, like, so when I started, ChatGPT wasn't around, so Stack Overflow was awesome. Then obviously now ChatGPT is around, which is fantastic resource. And then timing wise, it kind of came out rather similar to Wized. So these kind of go hand in hand. I think it's a very popular tool amongst every Wized developer. So even if you're fluent in JavaScript, which I would say I'm fluent in JavaScript, this is still very nice. Just a nice resource. I sometimes write down a couple of lines and just put like / to do into like my code. So I just write it out barely, and then I give it ChatGPT, please finish it for me. Sometimes it's much faster. So it's a very interesting way of working with it. And then almost 2 years ago, it took like a actual computer science course on Education X, like a CS50, and so it's
that's a good one.
Like only one lesson is about JavaScript, right? You have like 10 lessons and like one bonus lesson, and lesson number 8 is about JavaScript, and you have like 50% of the course is about C, and C is like a really, really old language, and you have to be crazy explicit. But that's where I learned like real programming in a language that's not JavaScript, but like all the lessons you learn there are very easily applicable to JavaScript. So JavaScript in comparison to C is crazy simple. So
yeah, it's like higher level. Like a lot of these things are taken care of for you already by the language itself.
It's crazy. You like, I wonder. You have to tell me how far the audience is progressed on that level. But I think everybody knows what a string is, right?
I think so. Yeah, they know about like data types like strings, arrays, and objects, etc.
Yeah. In C, strings is not a thing. Only characters is a thing. So what you have to do is you have to build for every word, basically for every string, right? For everything that's more than one character, you have to build an array, more or less, or it's really, really technical. It's like one character. It's like it's like mini arrays. Like there's a character in the array, and then there's like another value, which is a pointer to the next array, which then has a character and a pointer to the next array. And it's like crazy amount of brain power to do something as simple as a string. And you get a lot of appreciation for modern systems.
And like tell us a little bit about your studio. How did that come along? Sure. Like, yeah.
I mean, I initially started out, so I kind of made like the German version of an LLC when I decided I wanted to become a freelancer. But I initially started out just marketing myself, and I did that for a while, and definitely was the right choice in the beginning. But like once the requests became like more and more, and once I like decided I not just want to be, I don't want to be perceived as just me. I want to be perceived as a bit bigger, like an entity that can take on bigger projects. That's when I decided, hey, I want to create this brand, which is a BMG studio. So yeah.
Nice. And how long were you working as a freelancer before you decided to create a studio for the StudioForm platform? And tell us also why you decided to launch it in the first place. Like, what were the problems that you wanted to solve with it?
Okay, you mean the product, or you mean the agency / studio?
StudioForm, the product.
Oh, okay, the product. Okay, sorry, I misunderstood. I thought you asked in regards when I was a freelancer and when I did position myself from freelancer to agency. No, the product, that was around October 2022. That's when I got like a request in my email inbox from somebody that wanted to do like a multi-step form. And I mean, there were like some solutions around already. And that's how I like initially priced the projects based on the solutions already existing. And then I was like in the project, and the first day was fine. The second day was fine of development. Sorry. But on the third day of development, I just noticed, holy crap, I was like not up to the challenge, what I'm using here. And then I first decided to use like the base code of the system of the solution I used before. But then I quickly noticed, okay, I'll just have to write my own solution here. And then I think initially I priced the project around like a week worth of my work time back then. But it took like 2 months. But then the project was pretty cool. Was a pretty bad effective hourly rate, but the project turned out great. The client was super happy. And initially I thought, okay, I'll leave it at that, because I don't know. I think I calculated after that. I think I made like $17 per hour, which is like not great as a freelancer. Like, yeah, it's not really sustainable. But like in the middle of the project, I got like another request for like 1,200 euros, I believe. And somebody wanted like to rebuild like the checkout. And then I basically took my code, did like little edits to it, and then implemented it in that project. and basically got the project done in like 6 hours. And it's like, oh crap! And now I have like an effective hourly rate of $200. The client is like super happy, and we have like this really cool checkout flow here. And even though like the purpose of the form, right, was entirely different than the initial one, but it could still reuse the majority of the code base with like little edits. And that's where I think the initial idea came from. It's like, oh, that's really cool. There's something universal about this. There's something generally useful about this. And fast forward one and a half years, and now it's really generalistic. Now you can actually use it in loads of different use cases, and you don't need me to use it.
Yeah,
which was definitely
now you covered it briefly. And tell us more about StudioForm. Like, what is it exactly? What can it help you as a user with? And how much does it cost? And so on.
Oh yeah, sure. So StudioForm is basically a JavaScript snippet, and in the style that you use it, it's very similar to FinSuite attributes. So you have like one line of code, you put it inside of your project hat or something, right? And on the page, you put it in the hat code, or you put it on the page somewhere. And then you put one attribute on the form wrapper itself. Right, you have like the form block, and you have the form itself. You can put one attribute on like the form block, and then that's basically most of the setup already done. It makes much more sense if you see it, but it goes really fast.
Yeah.
And what it allows you to do is it kind of supercharges your form. So, for example, you might want to build like a multi-step form that becomes like super easy, or you might want to have some custom input validation that becomes super easy, or you want to build it in combination with Wized and Xeno. Then you're maybe like on step 1, and then you can listen to a specific event, send that, and Wized can recognize that event, and then you can send that data over to Xeno, and Xeno can process it, and then it comes back. So in a way, it's made for really complex user flows, and like make like user flows that you want to build, make them less painful to build and much easier to maintain. That's basically the goal of the tool. The other thing you ask, how much does it cost? It's currently free, and I want to keep it free. So there's like basically this core script that I have, and that's gonna stay free. Eventually, I want to offer like some upgrade features to it, but like the core feature, the core functionality, that will is free and will stay free.
So to sum up, you can create multi-step forms with just a couple of attributes, and it's completely interoperable with Wized and Xano as well, and it makes all the input validation and all that hassle super simple and straightforward. You just add a couple of attributes, and that's pretty much it. Would you mind showing us and walking us through the setup?
Sure. Let me do screen share. So we're building one other product at the moment, which is this right here, which is BGM.studio library, which is, as you might guess, simply a collection of already kind of pre-built elements. And that makes it like even more straightforward. You just press the copy button, and then it's copied to your clipboard. And let's make like a new page, new test. Let's press create. Let's paste it in here. You might have like Relume, Class Sync, or whatever. Then at the top here, you kind of have like the notice. Okay, here you can go to documentation if you want, but you don't need this. And now you simply press publish. And that's already a majority of the setup. So you don't even have to go in and set attributes. That becomes more important once you want to customize this and want to understand at a deeper level what's happening here. But as you can see, this is already functional. Looks a bit weird sometimes in terms of styling because I've done a lot of testing on this particular project, but you can also make it look very pretty. But yeah, that's basically it. It has features like continue with the keyboard or go backwards with like the backspace. Yeah. And
so you pasted a couple of attributes, and we have pretty much everything. We have like the steps showing the current steps. You can style it in Webflow 100%, right? You can style the error messages and all of that. Yeah.
Basically, that's if you want to have a look at it in Webflow. It's here. It's all native elements. That's how it looks in your backend if you wanna, or in your Webflow designer if you wanna manage it. So all native elements.
How do you manage the showing the current steps?
Let's start with the attribute. You go onto basically this progress element, and then you look on the right side here, and that's basically SF for StudioForm minus, and then multi-step multiform _4, because this is the name of the form, and then basically current minus 0, because this is the initial value. On this one it's current minus 1, and then it's current minus 2, and then it's current minus 3. It might be a lot of information at the first glance, but it's like a very repeatable system, and it makes a lot of sense once you've done it one time. Regarding that name, it's like multiform 4 here, but for example, we could call this example _form, right? This would be like the form name that we give our form, and then it would work SF minus example form, current minus 0. And then you do the same over here, and basically do this through the entire attributes.
So SF is for StudioForm, and then any name that you added to your form comes right after.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
And you have the documentation as well for like all these steps and stuff that users can look into.
For sure. Even though I do have to say at this current stream, documentation is still the weakest point of the product, but eventually we're going to have a great documentation.
Yeah. Well, and now you have a tutorial too, so...
Yeah. It's getting there. It's definitely getting there. But as you can see, should I open the developer tools? It helps sometimes to understand what's happening.
Sure.
If it's like not...
Just zoom in a little bit so that we see it.
Yeah. Unfortunately, on Arc, it's really hard to zoom. Or like the zoom functionality doesn't work on here. But let's say we go to step 2. Then we can have a look at this element right here. And we see over at classes that it has this combo class attached, SF current. And all of its child elements also receive this combo class, SF current over here. And also this element receives like SF current. And for example, if we now further progress, we have SF current and we have SF completed, which is the class that is attached after you have been on a step and successfully progressed further. And this is again applied to like all elements. So basically it's applied to the element that we gave the attribute, right? For example, this SF example _form current minus 1. This now gets the class because we are on step number 3. That means, this has already been progressed, right? We already completed this step. So now StudioForm automatically applies this combo class to this specific element. and all its children, which allows you back in Webflow to make like some really custom styles. So let's say we put SF completed on here, and then we put it on this child, so this gets hidden, and then we put it on the icon, and then this gets shown. And that's basically the logic. It's a bit fast at first, but repeatable. Once you get it once, it's the same every time.
Yeah, so you always use the same combo class to style all the children of the element.
Yeah.
You get
basically.
SF completed, and then you can choose how this will look on different elements. Like on one of the elements, you're setting display to none. On the other, you're setting display to flex, and so on.
Yeah. Pretty much. That's that in a nutshell.
Pretty cool. And
Do you like it?
yeah, it's amazing. And how does validation work? Because that's something that takes like quite a lot of actions when you do it in Wized. How did you resolve it here? How is it like done? How it's being reused and so on?
I could show you the code, but that would probably would be very confusing.
No, not the code, but like how do you implement it with attributes?
Oh yeah, you don't have to, like if let's for example go on email, and then we go to settings. There are 0 attributes on this. But if we look on the live page, let's do this again and try to continue. And let's fill in something, and let's still try to continue. It tells you, hey, this is not an email address. But you haven't set any attribute on this. And this is part of the magic of StudioForm and the script. Basically, it knows on which step you currently are. And then on that step, it collects all the inputs, all the selects, and all the text areas, and tests if it meets the pattern, which in this case is the email pattern, right? Or it could be the phone pattern, or the number pattern, or the plain pattern. Or if you're fancy, you could even use the classic HTML pattern, and then you'll have to ask ChatGPT. I don't know how to write patterns.
Regular expressions. You don't know how to write them?
Oh man.
Like I always ask ChatGPT.
Yeah. No. But back when I learned JavaScript, I've been in Stack Overflow a lot. Apparently, there are humans that know how to fluently write regular expressions.
Yeah, there's even people writing books about it.
Yeah, no, that's not me. ChatGPT has worked for that.
And Mike asked, can he use his own Webflow interactions for step transitions?
So you have a lot of customizability, but this is basically a GSAP transition, and that is applied with StudioForm for you. So there are basically a couple of options you have, but to answer the question quickly, no, you don't use Webflow interaction for the step transition.
Yeah, but you can change the timing, you can change the angle. Could you show us like a little bit of quick customization here on the spot? Let's say we wanted to make it faster and we wanted to change the direction. Can we do that?
Okay, sure. I have to remember the attribute for the timing, which is because it's basically a 2-part time. It's for the current slide when that moves away, and for the next slide when that comes in. So you kind of have two times. And I believe...
So you have granular control.
Very granular. Maybe too granular. I'm open to suggestions. I'd be happy to change the code base in a way that's less granular. But yeah. You said make it faster, right? So standard is 0.5 seconds for SF current time. And let's say we make it... I think FinSuite's animation time is 0.1 usually, right? You guys build with 100 milliseconds.
Yeah, for something like that, it would probably be like a bit more, like 200, because it's like a big element.
Okay.
But yeah, let's try with 200.
0.2. And so that is the current time. And then you see that in comparison to the next time. So it will go fast away and come slower in, but just to have some reference here. And then angle, that's quite a cool feature. So 90 degrees is the standard angle. You can get really funky here because you have the option to choose between 0 and 360 degrees. So do you want to use something unusual, or do you want to go with something classic?
Let's go with 0. Like just
okay.
0 is from the top to the bottom, or let's go from bottom to top.
Yeah, basically it's
0 or 180.
Right, 0 is here, and then you kind of move clockwise.
Yeah, but if we wanted for the element to slide in from the bottom up, that would be 0 or 180.
That is a question too much here. We tried out.
All right.
Let's see. Let's refresh here. Let's put in some email. And that was quick.
Okay, so this is top bottom. Yeah.
Okay, but you wanted the other one, right? Let's try one.
Yeah. That's so cool how quickly you can change it. Like, I basically did the same thing with Wized, to build an animation like this that goes from the bottom to the top and so on. But you need to write a lot of CSS to do the keyframe transitions and all of that. And, you can't just change it so quickly and set it up so quickly. So this is like really amazing. It saves so much time.
I'm happy you like it. No, really cool. Yeah. And so basically those are the standard ones are basically 0 to 360 degrees. Usually you would pick 0, 90, 180, or 270 to have all your angles. You could obviously do something weird like 45 degrees. It looks funny. Definitely makes no sense in production. But we could actually try it if you're interested.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Maybe if you're building like a comic site or something like this, then it would make sense.
Maybe. So let's make some weird options here. So SF next time, let's put this on something long, like 2 seconds, so you kind of see the difference between the two. And let's publish again. Also, one thing that's going to be interesting, I can show you that too, is you have obviously 0 to 360 degrees, but you also have the option to turn this off and simply have a fade.
Nice.
To do that, I can show you how to do that. But let's first preview the 45 degrees. Interesting. So something about this this attribute is not working right here, but I can check what that is. But at least the angle thing is working.
But it looks quite cool.
Yeah, that's cool. Perfect.
And this is called StudioForm within Wized. You want to explain that?
Oh, yeah, sure. So StudioForm is in and of itself a self-living product. But once I got my hands on like Wized Embed 2.0, and I saw like the potential of customizing and the customizability, I took the product and rewrote like the base code of it to make it like so it can still live on its own, but it's like super easily integratable with Wized. And that's probably best to show in an example. Should I move to an example in Wized?
That would be fantastic, yeah. So you can use StudioForm as a standalone thing. You don't need to combine it with Wized, basically. You can just build any sort of multi-step form that you like.
Yeah, you could do that. But I mean, you leave a lot of fun on the table if you would. Like, I did like... it is a lot of fun to build, and I might as well just show you here. So this is a very similar project to the standalone form over here. And if we look inside of Webflow, it's like basically this page over here, which is very similar to the one we've just seen. And it's a very similar setup process. This one was actually as well, we just copied one of the 5 forms in the StudioForm library. And then I just customized a couple of the fields without doing much attribute stuff. Okay, one thing for the Wized setup that you need to do is on the form element itself. So if you remove the class over here, you have on the left side, you see, okay, this is the form element.
Mm-hmm.
On the form element itself, you put a Wized attribute. In this case, I know you don't like my snake and camel case combination, but I didn't know. Like, my naming is not clean in this project, but that's also not the point.
No worries.
This thing, I believe.
I was actually also doing the same thing, and then Alex told me, he was like, okay, developers will get mad if we just combine like snake case and camel case. Like, that's normally not combined and stuff. So then I just stopped combining it. But yeah, I used it the same way before.
Okay, that's probably the naming system is part of another stream, probably most likely.
Yeah.
But yeah, naming is interesting. It's a very, very hard skill, hard to learn. At least if you want to get it in a way that's like reusable and you know what you did. Like, right, you leave the project and 1 year later you come back and you still know what you did. That's where you need good naming skills. But basically, if you turn on the X-ray, you see, okay, there's one single Wized attribute on this form, which is this one, right? And then you can see it here. And so that's basically the first step that you have to do if you want to combine these two. So maybe to further go into the setup. So the StudioForm wrapper, right? Or if you return, if we remove the class, you see the form block. This one at the bare minimum needs this attribute right here. So SF equals wrapper. So that is the minimal amount of attributes that you need. And then also inside of the form, you need step elements. So this is a step, this is a step, this is a step. And in our case, we even gave them some names, but you don't necessarily need to give them names. This is just optional. Yeah. So that for the setup. And basically, what Wized does allow you, especially the embed 2.0, that's why I got so excited when I got my hands on this, is inside of actions. For one, this is like, right, this is now an action on an element, and it's on the form itself, right? Form _ livestream. And then that's the really exciting part. So Wized can listen, or like by default, it could always listen to click and always listen to submit. But it also lets you listen to completely custom events. And for StudioForm, I invented the event called SF Promise. And if you have the setup right, and if you have the attributes set correctly, then for example, if you are like on step 0 or like the first step here, so you kind of, I think everybody is familiar with arrays and that they start with 0, right?
I just wanted to give a quick recap. So when you have an array, the first item in the array has an index of 0, the second item in the array has an index of 1, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. And you can kind of think about that. That is kind of what StudioForm is doing. So in Webflow, these steps right here, they are kind of saved as an array. So they're like you start, so your step 1 is actually the step with the index 0, your step 2 is the step with the index 1, and so on. And obviously sometimes you get it mixed up, but I wanted to keep this clean, as as we just discussed for like the snake and camel case mixture. You kind of want to keep it clean. It's not always that easy. But yeah, so back in Wized, we are on step 1 or step with the index 0, and now we try to continue. And now we can listen to the SF promise event, which is, there are like a lot of things happening inside these couple 100 milliseconds. But basically, if we go to actions, it's like, okay, on event SF promise, perform a request, which is really bad naming here, but that's not the point of the call. Promise resolve call 1. And it's basically, okay, the E variable is as events, and we're listening to the SF promise event. And StudioForm puts in the detail, it puts the information on what step you're currently on. And so that is basically, okay, make the promise resolve call number 1 when we are on the step with the index 0. Otherwise, don't do anything. And then we can make a call over to Xeno in our case, or any backend of your choice. Could be Supabase, could be Airtable, could be Firebase. We're making basically a request over in Xeno. And then we can have Xeno decide, let's say we go back to API, and this is the API of our first slide. We can have Xeno decide, hey, are the inputs provided here, are they correct or not? And then in another action, which is over here, so SF promise for slide 1 when it responds. Basically this line is important here. So StudioForm.checkout in our case. Why checkout? Because we've named the form over here checkout. So StudioForm.checkout.resolve, and then, okay, we resolve it to true if the request was successful, or resolve it to false, which means on resolve false, we stay on the page, on the slide. And then these other these other lines here are basically, okay, if it's false, please display an error. And maybe, let's say, we select something correct here. Let's say we select sunglasses, and we press the next button, and boom, we're allowed to the next step.
So you have basically validation for each one of the steps in the multi-step form, and the validation is being performed by the backend of your choice, in this case, Xeno.
Yeah. Naturally, very hard to do.
Yeah. And Mike asked, can you add conditional logic with Wized?
For sure.
And how do you validate checkboxes? Like, for example, maximum 4 checkboxes are allowed. For example, if you have a multiple choice module and, users can select up to 4 answers only.
Yeah. I don't have anything prepared for that, unfortunately. But what you would do is, let's say you go with the SF promise setup, which I would recommend for Wized, because it gives you extremely granular access to everything. It would basically be, okay, somebody presses the next button. When somebody presses the next button, this event is created, right? This SF promise. Then, let's say we don't want to make a promise. We don't want to make a call to Xeno. You just want to do front-end conditional logic inside of Wized. Let's say we make something new here. On event, again, let's listen to SF promise over here, and then let's run a function. And then inside of that function, you could basically, it depends on which attributes you set, but this is basically, you can ask ChatGPT, okay, I'm on slide 2 right now. Please select me all checkboxes from slide 2. And okay, are 4 checked or are 5 checked? Basically, if you're happy or not, then you can decide, hey, do I want the user to be able to continue, or should they stay on this page? And you can basically do all of that inside of a custom function with a couple of lines.
Yeah. So yeah, basically, if you have like a checkbox group input, let's say it's called I.checkbox, checkbox group, you can just check the length of that array. So how many options have been selected, Mike? So if there's more than 4 options, you can just return an error, basically.
Yeah, in a way.
So he asked, how will we return false and stay on the step since the event is an independent function?
Can you ask the question again, especially the second part of the question?
So he's basically asking, how do you handle validation to make sure that the input was correct before you go to the next step? How do you test any arbitrary condition basically before you go to the next step?
So, for one, you have this standard validation testing, which is, okay, is this an email? Okay, are you happy with the email? Is this a number? Are you happy with the number? Or is this some custom pattern? Are you happy with that? But for example, StudioForm has some feature for checkbox groups, but let's say it wouldn't really matter because Wized developers are the most advanced Webflow users. I would say it like that. So you don't actually need a checkbox group feature from StudioForm out of the box, because what you could do is you could ask ChatGPT, as I suggested before, hey, or right, the input dot check, the I dot checkbox, as you mentioned before, right? Is it longer than 4 entries or not? And basically you could do your own validation, and you do your testing, and at some point you will end up with an if clause. Okay, if true or if false, right? Let's say if false, or let's call it this const, and then condition I calculated before equals false, right? Something like that. Okay, if this equals false, or if you want to get exact, equals false, then we're basically here. And what you can
you throw a native SF error?
That's basically these couple of lines here. So it's a bit more granular than a one-line command, but it makes sense why it is that. So the first really important one is, or the major one is, so this SF promise event was created, right? So SF promise, and now a promise has to always be resolved in some form. And in StudioForm, it's quite straightforward. It's StudioForm dot your instance name. In our case, we called our instance checkout. Maybe for reference, you can have as many instances as you want. So you can have 8 multi-step forms on your page if you have some crazy reason for that. But StudioForm is not stopping you from that. So it's StudioForm dot your instance name and then dot resolve, and then you can resolve it to false if you, or you can resolve it to true if you're happy with your condition before, or you can resolve it to false, and then the user stays on that particular step and is not allowed to continue. And that's the heavy lifting. And once the heavy lifting is done, you can get do the beauty stuff, which in this case is, hey, you don't have to understand the syntax of these. You can also use some other logic for this.
But you're essentially just displaying an error message.
Yeah, and then writing an error message. Which is StudioForm specific, but these, you could say these 2 lines, you don't have to do this. You could also do document dot get element by ID, and then maybe hashtag my error ID. You don't need the hashtag, I think, for this one. But you could select it yourself, and then you just set style.
Or just update a width variable as well.
Or you just do that, which would also be which would be the Wized native way of doing this. Right.
I mean, each option worked. Like that's the beauty of programming. You can do the same thing in like 20 ways. You just have to find like what suits you and what's easy for you to maintain.
Yeah, for sure. 100% agree with that one.
So everything is like 100% interoperable with Wiz. Like you don't need to use actions for all the transitions and whatnot, like the keeping track of the current item and all of that. All of that is handled for you. You basically just use Wized for handling requests and, resolving different promises and so on.
Yeah, basically. So StudioForm is like doing the heavy lifting of and the groundwork. While what I try to achieve with StudioForm, because I'm using it like pretty like I can say like in 100% of my projects I use StudioForm, like in my agency projects, and I never have a client from the same industry. I always have clients from different industries. So I had to make StudioForm in a way that it works and looks good, no matter the industry, no matter the style of a particular way of doing business. It had to be like a general purpose software. And basically the ground foundation, it does like the heavy lifting on the ground foundation. And while not boxing you in, I try really hard to not box you in with StudioForm. So gets you like 70 to 90% of the way there and always leaves you the last 10% for you to do like the chef's kiss in a way, to put like the finishing on it. And that's basically the idea of the product. Because like when you build a form, I've built a great many forms in the last couple of years. Like 70 to 90% of the stuff you do is always the same, and or very similar. And but like these last 5 or 10%, those are like really custom. And for example, if I would write StudioForm in a way that it had a solution for everything, right? For every edge case, then it would be like this massive, super big script that nobody would want on their site because it would slow the site down immensely. So
yeah,
I try to keep it light and leave the custom development to the developers, right? These final touches, which have like massive effect, right? It's like a lever, like you just leverage StudioForm to have certain parts of your development be much faster than otherwise. So I believe with every project you do, it saves you at least a couple of days, at least a couple of hours, but in some cases it might even save you a couple of weeks.
Yeah. So it does basically all the heavy lifting for you, like things that would take you probably hours to just develop, and it would take a lot of mental resources to think about how to structure and all of that. But, what you really want to do is actually focus on what matters, like the styling, like making sure that all the correct requests are getting triggered and so on. You don't want to have to deal on every project with like all that underlying logic for managing multi-step forms. So you have like the validation in place and everything. You just need to like tap into it and configure your projects how you like it. And that's really amazing because you can use it basically for any project, no matter if you're building like an enterprise grade app or, a funny cartoony site. Like all the styling is completely customizable. The logic can be changed and overwritten if you don't like something. It's very, very cool.
Thank you. Yeah, that's basically the idea of it. And regarding like the enterprise grade, I've been lucky enough to implement it in a couple of really big companies, and I've also implemented it in environments with like loads of requests. I think like the maximum so far was like one project where we did like 500 submissions per hour, which was pretty nuts. It's just like you learn a lot on these volumes.
Nice. So it's like it stood the test.
Yeah, it definitely broke. But there we're like now it's pedal tested.
Perfect. So yeah, now we're safe to use it.
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay, Mike says that now his brain is running with lots of ideas.
That's awesome. That's what I wanted to achieve.
Is there anything else you wanted to cover?
I mean, like this is basically like an introduction to the to StudioForm itself, and I mean, like the idea is to boost you as a developer. And for example, me and Onoy, we're working on a big project at the moment, and a lot of the project is custom, but we have an onboarding form, and like we have like I think 4 steps in the onboarding form, and then we send it over to Xeno, and this just I think we set it up in a couple of hours, or maybe even an hour, and otherwise this would have been at least a week, I would assume. So this just gives you a bunch more brain resources. It's like allows you to focus on other stuff.
Last question from Mike. Does StudioForm have an NPM package so that he can use it in a custom project like Xanthem or FinSuite Starter?
Yeah, you can. It even has an open source GitHub if you're interested. So let's do this. BGM.studio/form. That's basically the landing page of the product. Then you go to start now. And if you have a look at right, this is like the step 1 you have to do, like copy the script and basically, so if you don't use the library, that's how you would have to do it. Copy the script and just paste it in your head settings. And if you have a closer look at this, especially this CDN line, now I lost my page. Over here. If we have a closer look at this line, this is basically JS deliver over NPM, and I have to see if I can find the Google for this, or if I can find it on Google. NPM. Yeah, I think there it is. And I can send it to you later, Emmanuel, and then yeah, it can be used in any way you want.
Cool, thank you so much.
Sure.
Thanks everyone for jumping in. It was such a huge pleasure having you over here, Leon. Thank you so much for this amazing walkthrough and the awesome time for answering all of our questions. And yeah, looking forward to having you again on the stream.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me, and it was absolutely great. Looking forward for more.